Everyone, happy World Humanitarian Day. I am Jess Thompson, CEO here at All Hands and Hearts, and welcome to our webinar celebrating this special day that recognizes the hard work of humanitarians across the globe, a day to celebrate people helping people. We've got a great panel featuring some of our incredible team members who dedicate their lives to support our mission to respond to disasters as they unfold across the globe and empower communities we serve to build resilience. Our panelists will be sharing some insight into how we do this in a manner which is flexibly and sensitively meeting each community's specific immediate and long-term needs. So let's kick things off. Every disaster is unique, whether it's a hurricane, sometimes referred to as a typhoon or a cyclone, earthquake, wildfire, or severe flood. And every region we monitor presents unique health and safety challenges which might hinder our capability to respond using our volunteer-powered model. This has been especially clear during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as these types of disasters unfold around the world, we're constantly monitoring and assessing whether we're in a position to respond in a way which both meets the needs of impacted communities and maximizes our funding to ensure that over 90% is spent directly on our response or recovery efforts. Given that every region and every community we encounter will present different needs and different scopes of work, we need to be flexible on how we lend our support. So even though our response to every disaster is unique and flexible, we've developed efficient practices and procedures underpinned by professional humanitarian principles, which we employ collaboratively across various departments to ensure we're meeting as many of the holistic needs of the communities impacted by disasters as we can. Today's webinar touches on these practices, and we're going to hear from some key members of our operations and volunteer and alumni relations teams. Here with me, we have Carla. I don't know if you can wave. I can't see you because I'm looking at the other screen. Alex and Maria, who will be sharing some insight into the key decisions made within their departments to ensure we're putting the immediate and long-term needs of communities impacted by disaster first. While many of you tuning in today may have seen or been involved in our response and recovery work, including clearing water-damaged homes of mold and debris, removing hazardous trees, tarping, repairing roofs, installing new home interiors, and all the stages involved in rebuilding beautiful schools, we'll be sharing today how our impact is far more wide-reaching and taking you behind the scenes to see how supporting communities in need starts earlier than getting the volunteer boots on the ground. And we'll round off by hearing from Siobhan, who will be reminding everyone tuning in how you can get involved, whether it's coming to volunteer in person or supporting our humanitarian operations remotely.
Thanks, Jess. So, hola, my name is Carla Puente Robles. I'm a Mexican architect from Guadalajara, Jalisco. And since the earthquake that happened in my country in 2017, I have been working with All Hands and Hearts Mexico. Currently, I'm the program development manager of the Mexican team, and we're looking to open a new phase soon. In general, the program development team, aka PDT, is responsible of introducing All Hands and Hearts model of the work experience and ability to address the needs of the communities to local government, organizations, and institutions. We investigate all the relevant information regarding the country, its regulations, and the impact disaster to then evaluate the feasibility of opening a recovery program in a specific area. We are charged of developing the design for the construction of the selected facilities, its budget and timeline. But before diving deeper into the factors we consider, when planning a school rebuild program, I wanted to provide a brief overview of where we have operated and with truly global impact we have had since we were founded in 2005. As you might have seen from the map on the previous screen, we have responded to disaster across North and South America, Asia, Africa, and Australasia. We have launched 140 programs across 5 continents, setting up bases in 23 countries, impacting more than 1.2 million people. Being able to provide a safer space for children recovering from the aftermath of a disaster to learn, play, and grow is a key area where we recognize we can have a major impact. Rebuilding damaged schools means children can return to learning spaces, parents and teachers can return to work, and the whole community has a disaster resilient space to shelter in the event of a future disaster. This is why most of our international operations since 2015 have focused around school rebuilds in often remote communities. In total, we have rebuilt 325 schools, allowing more than 170,000 children to return to education. You can read more about our impact statistics on our website, and we'll share a link to this in the chat. So, how do we make this happen? Well, as we will be covering a lot of ground in a short amount of time today, I'll be providing a very brief overview of how we approach our international school review programs. We will be taking some questions if we have time, but anyone turning in can feel free to reach out to us for more information on a specific stage of the process. Joanne will provide details to get in touch, but feel free to drop a question in the chat and we'll get back to you if we don't get to your question today. So we will start off by evaluating the feasibility of responding effectively to a new disaster. And we follow these steps every single time we begin monitoring a new disaster region. The first phase focuses on remote monitoring and potential deployment. Our international disaster assessment and response team, aka DART, are continually monitoring storms and disaster events. Once we identify an area where we can potentially help, PDT, Program Development Team, the team that I'm part of, and DART, members will work together to continue to monitor remotely and determine whether to deploy a team to assess from the ground. If a ground assessment is given the green light, then our teams will always engage support from local stakeholders and government agencies, and is at this stage that health and safety security concerns and the potential scope of work will be considered. From there, we will be looking to identify specific schools or clusters of schools to be further investigated. This involves visiting schools in person to define the preliminary scope of work for each school based on their needs. And we always aim to do this in a consistent, unbiased, and transparent manner. We'll be continually collaborating with local government and non-government organizations and humanitarian actors to help us identify schools in need of our support. In many of the nations we work internationally, education is heavily controlled by government. Mexico, my country, is one of those cases. And our work, for example, can only progress in those regions with a great deal of coordination and collaboration, and most importantly, approval from local government actors. So we will have regular consultation and coordination, even supervision, with community and school stakeholders from the early assessment phases, right through to program competition. Once we have identified the region and specific schools we think we are the best place to support, we carry out our final assessment and consider the designs to be employed. Part of this process involves producing a health and safety plan to consider any risk involved in running the program and identifying possible control measures to mitigate them. And once the design options are agreed upon and we have an estimation on the time needed to complete all the tasks required, we will be looking to identify a safe base operations and quantify the projected costs expected for project management, labor, materials, transport, tools, and the cost to house residential volunteers, local masons, and staff. All of this information is then presented to our leadership team and board directors, who will decide whether we should launch a program or not. And this when we will work together with other departments to start hiring staff, networking with potential donors and partners, and prepare a volunteer application. This is obviously a very quick overview, but we wanted to highlight how we review regions and specific schools based on impact and resilience factors while working alongside the government and local community. And we are extremely focused on safety during the planning phases, which underpins the entire program's success. If anyone turning in would like to learn more about that we do, especially anyone with a background in civil or structural engineering or architecture and planning, we're looking for a program development manager and a program development specialist now. So we're adding links to both of those vacancies in the chat. So you can check those out and please share these opportunities with anyone you know who may be interested. That's all. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Carla, for giving us such a very, very brief overview of very complex piece of work there. We did want to take some time to check in case anyone had any questions in the chat. I've been, I don't know if everyone's got their chat open, but I've been saying feel free as our panelists are talking to put any questions in the chat, or if anyone's interested in anything that Carla has shared about how we go out into regions and select schools to work for or get prepared. I don't know if anyone has any questions they want to ask Carla live. You could do it in the chat, or feel free to come off mute and come on camera. Well, feel free. It feels like no one at the moment, but if anything comes to you as our speakers are sharing, please share in the chat. And if we can't get to you right away, we will always ping back. I can download the chat later. And if anyone's asked any questions I might have missed, I will get back to you personally. But we'll keep going onwards with our next speaker. So that's going to be over to Alex, kicking it over to you.
All right, thanks, Siobhan. You can hear me? Yeah, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Seyfarth, and I am the Director of Organizational Effectiveness. I have been with All Hands and Hearts for about 8.5 years now, starting as a volunteer in the Philippines with a few of the other presenters on the call. My current role is a new one that I've stepped into over the last couple of months, with a focus on how we effectively measure and deliver against our mission, both at an organizational and program level. My role within Kentucky DART, which stands for Disaster Assessment Response Team, was to provide support and expertise as a staff member who had previous experience responding to U.S. disasters. Similarly to how Carla took us through a very high-level overview of the considerations that need to be made when we select which disasters to respond to, and where we think we can effectively rebuild schools around the world, I'd like to touch on how we respond to disasters as they unfold closer to home here in the U.S. We launched a rapid response at the end of July in Eastern Kentucky, and I'll be detailing how all departments worked together to go from monitoring the flooding to launching a full volunteer-powered program focusing on operations, marketing, IT, development, and volunteer and alumni relations. These are similar steps and considerations we make when responding immediately as a disaster strikes in the U.S., although they'll differ slightly depending on the disaster and state or U.S. territory. So we've added a timeline here, and you can see that between July 27th and 28th, heavy rains hit regions of Kentucky, causing historic flash flooding, widespread damage, and displacement. The flash floods hit an unprecedented 13 counties, and some rivers reached heights that had not been previously recorded. The local communities moved into the search and rescue phase, and our DART carried out a remote feasibility assessment. We considered the needs of those affected and the potential scope of work alongside identifying safety and security concerns, exploring potential donor support, volunteer interest, and staff capacity. These considerations were presented to the All Hands and Hearts leadership team, and a rapid response program was approved on July 29th. From there, our core DART members, led by Chloe Foreman, our global response manager, began the process of recruiting for volunteer team leaders, potential future program staff, and identifying housing options for the team within affected communities. I was one of the first team members on the ground on July 31st. While continuing to monitor any safety concerns in the weather, my main focus was to connect with local partner organizations and try to get an early sense of the area in which All Hands and Hearts could best provide support. At the same time, members of our DART team arrived at the base of our Hurricane Ida relief program in Louisiana. With the help of the current staff team, they packed up tools, our box truck, and additional vehicles so that we could start work as soon as possible in Kentucky. They took off for their 2-day drive on August 1st. On August 2nd, by August 2nd, most of the DART had arrived in Kentucky. We had a base secured at a local church, and we were in the process of establishing access to potable water, which was and continues to be a key concern in affected areas. We began to conduct initial assessments and build a work queue with our experienced volunteer team leaders. As our base was also the location of a large donation center for those affected by the flooding, we jumped in when we could, unloading trucks and assisting people in finding what they needed. We received the green light to launch a full volunteer application on August 3rd, and thanks to an incredible collaborative effort between our volunteer and alumni relations, marketing, and IT teams, we were able to welcome volunteers right away. At this point, thanks to our amazing development and marketing teams and generous supporters, we have raised sufficient funds for us to cover program costs through September. This is a great example of what can be done in less than a week after a disaster strikes when we work together and when we employ our tried and tested response models and procedures. Now for some data. Our first day working on homes was just 2 weeks ago on August 5th. In that time, we've assessed over 50 homes for mucking and gutting, debris removal, tree removal, and sanitation. Of those 50, we've completed 6 and worked on 9 for a direct impact of 35 people, with 36 volunteers joining us so far. We're actively seeking volunteers to support our work both here in Kentucky and in Louisiana. To anyone tuning in and feeling inspired, please don't hesitate to come down and join us. We're welcoming volunteers for as short or as long as works for you. We're also looking to fill some key staff roles on both programs. If it's not a great time to volunteer or switch up your career, please share these opportunities with friends, family members, and colleagues. And we are going to add the links to each program page in our volunteer and career pages in the chat now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was great, really great rundown of really live program there in Kentucky. I do see a question in the chat for Carla, so we'll go to that next, but maybe does anyone have questions just while Alex is still here and talking about Kentucky, about the program there, about what's going on? I've added links about how you can volunteer or how you can tell people about it. We're also looking for current staff team members, but does anyone have a question that they might like to ask about Kentucky or our DART responses in general? Again, you can pop it in the chat or come off mute, feel free. What we might want to do then is, Carla, I don't know if you saw this message from Amy. Carla, Amy, thanks you for the overview. She said it was really interesting information she might have missed, but she's curious about the timeline for school rebuilding interventions. So how quickly do you get teams in post-event, and how long does your team stay in affected areas typically?
Yeah, I read it. Hey, Amy, thank you for the question. So for the team that I'm part of, that is program development team, we are under the umbrella of the operations department and is part of the international recovery team. So we normally arrive to the country sometime a little bit more after the disaster happened, as we are part not of the immediate response team as DART is. We are as a recovery. We might wait for having a clear ideas about how we can collaborate with other stakeholders and see if rebuilding efforts have been started with other organizations, for example. So it would depend of the situation. We normally arrive a little bit later than the response team, for example. The time that we stay before a program is open, it varies, to be honest, depending on the complexity of the assessments and the quantity of visits that we have to do for understanding better the area, but we might be around the 4 months, 5 months before we open a new program. It's a long process that we're trying to perfection, but it normally takes like that long.
Thank you so much, Carla. And again, any follow-up questions to that, do feel free. There's Amy saying thank you for the response, Carla. And we got Sharon was asking Alex, I don't know if you guys looked at this. I know it's not something we routinely work on in the US, about schools in Kentucky that needed work. I assume that our scope of work in Kentucky is mostly homes. I don't know if you've got any info on that for Sharon.
Yeah, it is typically homes in the US. Go ahead, Jess.
I was just going to say, if you didn't have any more information, I can answer, but if you do, go ahead.
Oh, well, the information I had is just from the counties that we were in, the schools were not in need of the assistance that we could provide. They were pushing the school year back a couple of weeks because many of the schools had become the donation centers and the shelters. But from the area that we were in, it was just 2 of the 13 counties. There weren't schools that needed assistance.
And I'll add from our previous responses in the US, we have sometimes supported with some of the cleanup that might be needed in schools in the US, but because those schools are run and managed by government, then they don't typically ask for nonprofit support with that kind of work. So in the US, our work is largely focused around individual homes that need help, because local and federal government is able to step in and help the schools to recover.
Thanks so much, Jess. And Alex, we had a direct message as well, direct to me, asking how long the program in Kentucky will last. Now, my last knowledge was it was around 6 weeks, but I don't know if that's leak times changed or not yet. Alex, do we have confirmation on how long that's going on for?
Can you hear me?
Alex, your connection's breaking up a little bit, but I can step in and say that, as Siobhan said, currently the program is open through mid-September. We're really hoping to make a decision in the next few days about whether we'll be able to extend that through the end of September, based on the need that we're seeing on the ground and the funding that we have in place. But currently, still a 6-week program through mid-September.
Thank you, everyone, for confirming. That looks like all the questions so far, but please feel free to keep popping them in the chat, and we will certainly get back to you. And then we're going to keep kicking on. We've got another couple of topics to cover here. We're going to head over to Maria now, talking about how we address community needs in a holistic and flexible way. So over to you, Maria.
Thank you. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Maria Fernanda Romero Guzman. I'm from Colombia. I'm International Recovery Manager. I'm right now in the Philippines. It's 1 a.m. For me. I'm really happy to be here, so thank you all for joining. I'm gonna talk a little bit about our Renew projects. So as my title said, I'm just gonna link it a little bit with what Carla explained. So she said she's part of the project development team. They set up the whole program. And once the program is ready to go, this is where my role comes in action, no? To do all the staffing, support all the transition, and then make sure that once the program is running, we do it in a way that is effective, connecting with different departments of the organization. And then at the end, support also the close down with the programs. Part of the operations part is the renew aspect of our projects, no? So today I'm going to explain a little bit a way how we do it. As we live in the communities where we serve and are often based in these regions for many years, if not for many months, if not for years, we become part of this community. When we're working in building schools or homes, depending on the project, our team also find new different ways to help, and us as an organization, and also they find different ideas and solutions on how to address them, no? And we encourage always for our teams to follow through these ideas. As you might know, disaster not only impact the physical structures of a community, but also disrupt the daily living by impacting important cultural practices. Our program teams undertake projects that aim to build community resilience beyond construction practices and work with local partners to identify projects that might be that will be most beneficial. Our Renew projects help to strengthen communities by boosting morale, restoring elements that bring the sense of normality to a community, provide new life or occupational skills. So now I'm gonna explain the way we do it. No, usually we do it in two ways. We have the capacity building aspect, and then the other one is the community engagement. Maybe I'm gonna talk a little bit more than what I have to, but this is something I'm very passionate about. So the first one I'm gonna talk is about capacity building and the different ways we do it, no? So the first one is our project of disaster risk reduction. This is a project that is usually undertaken by our community coordinators. Later I'm gonna explain a little bit more about this vital role for our programs. So this is a project that came with the idea to help foster culture of safety within the schools and communities. So once the program is running, we also try to do kind of like a small assessment of what other organizations, local partners or the government are doing in terms of disaster risk reduction. And then once we find who is working with similar topics, we coordinate with them to make sure that we're not giving a different message and that we are aligned with what the government or the other organization says. Then we start kind of like organizing training. So initially we have some sessions to enhance concepts or teach concepts related what is nature, what is a hazard, what is a disaster, how we identify hazard, what is vulnerabilities. And then this part of the training help us to understand a little bit the capacities that the community has. And then with this, we're able to identify where are we gonna focus or how are we gonna develop the trainings. Then once we finish this aspect, then this is when we start working with the communities, the school communities. Sometimes we involve also the families to make sure that there is a connection between what we're putting together for the school community with the families. We started creating the whole plan, no, for the community, for the disaster risk reduction. So we create a committee where we pretty much create an action plan before the disaster, during the disaster, post-disaster, with the idea to reduce risk and also have like different preparedness activities. One of the latest disaster risk reductions projects that I was part of, it was in our program in Mexico, in Tonameca. It was super challenging because due to COVID, we weren't able to have these initial sessions, no? So we created a podcast that we were sharing with everyone in the community. The kids was listening to it, and this was really, really nice. Then, well, is on Spotify. I'm gonna try to share the link with Siobhan so she can share it if you're interested in hearing it. It's in Spanish, so you may, well, learn a little bit or improve your skills in Spanish. Then the other one that we have is pretty much a capacity building, but that's when we engage with local partners that have those expertise, no? So we are right now experts in building. We have a team of architects, engineers, put the programs together, then we're building the schools, but then we're not like we don't have expertise, for example, in WASH or child protection policy. So that's when we look for organizations on the ground that have this expertise that we partner with to be able to implement this in the communities. So I'm just gonna give a couple of examples that we did in Guatemala. Well, right now I'm supporting Guatemala, Mexico, and Philippines. And in Guatemala, we just finished a WASH project, no? So to make sure that the facilities are going to be well used, well maintained and everything, and that the kids know how to use it, because sometimes there's no connection with what they have in their homes. We partner with ADRI, that is a Guatemalan organization that supported us with training. So part of our project was to provide toilets, hand washing stations, water collection systems, and everything. So again, I'm gonna give an example just to explain a little bit. So we partnered with Adri, and then we did like a field study to understand how is the context where the kids live, no? Just to make sure, again, that there is connection with what we're providing and what they have, and the structures that we were providing are being used. So we found, for example, that because access of water is limited in some communities, the kids and in their families, they don't have the habit of washing their hands. So at the end, we can build the most beautiful hand washing station, but the kids are not gonna use it because it's not in their habits, it's not like their behavior, no? So then with Adri, we were able to do trainings with the community, not only the school community, but engaging the parents, the families. So there were different trainings on like the importance, educational training, no? The importance of like washing hands, waste management, to give that a little bit more context of that. And then we did a small training of building a hand washing station in the house. After the training, our partner went to see if there was behavioral change, and it was like 60%, 70% of the families have built one, no? So with this, we're making sense with both things, no? So at the end, the kids are doing what they're doing in their homes, they're doing it also in the schools. So that's one like a clear example of a capacity building. There is another one, for example, in Nepal, the menstrual or the menstruation or the period is still a taboo, no? And in rural communities, they don't have access to hygiene products and everything. So we partner with Relief Nepal, that is our local partner, and we implemented trainings for this. So there was like educational training about hygiene, health, and hygiene and health during the menstrual cycle, and explain a little bit how is the cycle. And then we did a reusable menstrual pad productions to all the teenagers of the schools that we were working in. Another one also was child protection policy, child protection training, and recently in Nepal that we were building a maternity center. We partnered with Nathan, who provide specialist medical training. So that's also another way that we connect with communities. And again, it's super important here that we connect with local organizations to understand what the community or the resources that the community has. So we match with everything, and we don't go against of something that they are being that they have been doing, no? And then with this, we require a lot of coordination. So that's when the community coordinator role becomes super, super important, no? Because it's that bridge between the organization, the community, and all these local actors. This is a role that we have in every single community. In the picture on the upper right, that's Alejandra Macias. She was the community coordinator of Tonameca, and the one that put all the scripts together for our podcast in Tonameca. So yeah, that's a little bit about the community coordinator role. It's usually someone from the country or the community where they speak the local language or dialect, to make sure that we can understand and communicate with the community, no? And there is another aspect super important that this person does, and is that they bring awareness of the cultural cues that they have, no? So for example, in Nepal, if it's not because a community coordinator or our local staff, we don't know exactly what things we need to follow, no? And a small example is that we cannot show shoulders, we cannot show knees. So we're more aware about also how we behave when we're around the community and everything. Then now we have the community engagement aspect, that is the other part of our Renew projects, no? So the first one that I'm gonna talk about is our community-led projects. That is a community-based initiative which is planned by both All Hands and the community. With input and guidance from the local community, the aim is to identify public works that will benefit the whole community. And this is something that we do with the community and with our volunteers. So we identified other needs that the whole community have. So for example, in Nepal, we were working in a small community. They have a temple and the access to the temple was not good. So we support on fixing it. We have done playgrounds because it's something that the community needs. And like the example of the playground, it was a couple of years ago working in Peru. The school didn't have a playground and didn't have also a place where to build this playground, no? So everyone was saying that on Sundays after work, the kids didn't have any place where to go. So we built a playground in the middle of the community. And we do these small projects that it comes from other needs that the community have. The other one is community connections. And these are like activities that we do to connect with the community, no? So for example, we have language exchange classes. So we have English classes for Masons. Volunteers have Nepali classes, or I don't know, let's say Tagalog classes, depending on the country where we are. We have cooking classes. Here in the Philippines, ages ago, and it was an idea of a volunteer, we had a project called Little Dreams. And it was going to show movies in the community. So when we were here at that time, like I was a volunteer too, so we were mainly working in interdisplaced people camps or in other places affected by the Typhoon Yolanda, and they didn't still have electricity, no? So we had a car, we had a massive plywood screen, plywood that we printed with white, so it was our screen. We had a generator, we had a projector and a speaker. So we were after work driving 45 minutes, 20 minutes to different communities twice a week to show movies. And that was like the moment where all the community gathered together. Everyone was waiting for those movie nights because also they didn't have electricity. And then another initiative that I really like, it was like cooking classes with families from the communities. So this is something really nice because it's the moment where we have to actually engage with the community, understand a little bit how they live, because at the end we become part of those communities. And the last one that is also one of my favorites is the female Mason training. It's something that we mainly do in Nepal. And well, after disasters also, like women and girls are more like vulnerable, no? So in an initiative to empower women is where we created this project that is the female Mason training. So in the schools we have usually volunteers, Masons, and then we have our staff, of course, and then we have in Nepal women that doesn't know much about construction, but that we hire them to learn pretty much. So they provide unskilled work while they also receive classes. These classes are led by the construction teams. Usually our community coordinator also translates, because sometimes we have a CSC from other part of the world that doesn't speak the local language. And then with this, we teach them the whole part of like the theoretical part of the building, what is the grade beam, middle beam, roof beam, and all of that. And also we do like a practical training on like how to use the measuring tape, what does it mean, what is an inches, what is a centimeter, how to carry or lift a bucket, like from all of that. And at the end, they leave when we finish the school, they have all the knowledge of that. And one of examples, it was in Tulo-Pakar program, I believe it was 2017, we did the female Mason training. We left, and I remember a year and a half or 2 years later, the CSC sent me a text message that was super, super happy because someone in the community told them that the community hired those female Masons to support the construction of the police station of the community. So that was amazing. And yeah, well, this is just an example of the way we interact with the community and our Renew projects. If you have any questions, please let me know. I apologize if I mumble a lot. I'm a little bit sleepy, but yeah, thank you so much for joining.
That was incredible, Maria. Thank you so much. You put me on a nostalgia trip because I was with you one night to go to Little Dreams, and we jumped in a jeepney And I think we watched Cinderella, and it was beautiful. It was a lovely, lovely night. And some of my favourite memories were with the female Masons in Nepal and Sinduli in 2018. So lovely, lovely times. If you can get the chance to get onto programs and see the work we do with the communities, it's super, super special. There was a question in the chat, Maria, from Sean, and you might be able to handle that. It's basically Sean's asking, great to see you, by the way, Sean. He's curious if we do post-program reviews when we consider what went well, what could have been improved. So that made me think about like our fortnightlies and maybe like our workbook at the end of each program. I know that's something that you work with the teams to make sure that you're thinking about for the next program. Could you cover a little bit of that for us?
Yeah, so we have like an internal review, right? And it's right at the end of the program. So during the program, we're capturing all our lessons learned, best practices, serious concerns, and we put it together in a spreadsheet that is called the workbook. And then at the end of the program, as a team, we analyze it, we highlight what is the most important. And currently we're having different meetings with all the departments to give this feedback to see how can we improve for the next project, So that's kind of like an internal process that we have at the moment. And right now, for example, we just finished Guatemala a month ago, and from that workbook, there were like a lot of lessons learned that we were able to apply here in Philippines, that we're actually officially opening a program on Monday, 22nd of August. We're gonna receive or welcome our first volunteers. So yeah, that's a way that we do it.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Maria. Hopefully that answers your question there, Sean. We do have another question around Ukraine, and we'll jump to that. We'll maybe get Jess to cover that. But before we do that, while Maria's still here, does anyone have any questions, more questions for Maria around our renewal projects, around capacity building, community-led projects, and any other questions? Pop them in the chat or reach out. There's Paige has got a great question. Maria, can you see Paige's question in the chat there about what challenges do you face with language barriers? How do you work with other organizations if you don't speak the language?
So this is again when I said it's very like the community coordinator role becomes really vital, no? Because this is the person that connects us with the community, with other organizations. Also, when we're working in a country, we also have other staff from the same country, no? So our site supervisors, because on site we have the CSC sometimes, because also could be someone from the same country. But let's say if it's someone from England, and then we have also Masons and we have volunteers, then we need like a site supervisor that speaks the local language to be able to connect the CSC with the Masons. The CSC also talks with the volunteers and make sure that we have all the work organized. So it's not only the community coordinator, but also we have different staff that speak the language. We do our best to hire a lot of people from the country that we have, but yeah, definitely is a challenge, but it's not, let's say, it's not something that you cannot do, no? Like at the end, you have also like gestures and everything that can help you to connect, but of course, it's a super important meeting and everything. We have translators to support this. And at the end of like a couple of years and everything, you ended up learning a couple of words and things like that, so you can connect also with the community.
This is so timing. Thank you for your question, Paige, because it's so relevant to me personally. I'm in Texas right now, and my Uber driver last night was from Nepal, and I was able to say, you know, hello, my friend, you know, how are you? And tell him my name and where I was from. So grateful for those opportunities that we had, things like Nepali lessons from our community coordinator, and equally getting to chat to the Masons, help them improve their English. We improved our Nepali. It was a beautiful cultural exchange. So really, really great question, Paige. We appreciate that. Jess, we did have a question from Roger. Hello, Roger, great to see you. About planning to help the people of Ukraine. Now we, I don't know if you've seen, Roger, but we have done a ground assessment there. Our international disaster assessment response team definitely were there recently or might still be there. Jess, have you got a little bit of an overview there on that?
Yeah, and I'll say the same, Siobhan. Every now and again, I come across somebody from Haiti and I'm able to wheel out a bit of sac passe, and they, you know, we have a great conversation about how I managed to live in the middle of the US, originally be from England and speak Haitian Creole. So it's a great skill to have these languages and be able to connect with people, not just when you're on the ground, but for years and years, and be able to make those great friendships. So yeah, Roger, we did support in the early days in Ukraine, working closely with partners. So obviously with our volunteer model, we realized that it's not appropriate for us to be sending our kind of residential volunteer opportunities into a conflict zone like Ukraine at the moment. But what we were able to do is work with the folks that we know on the funding side and partner with some organizations there who needed supplies, critical supplies, particularly in the area of evacuation. So we were able to support with vehicles that local nonprofits were using to evacuate vulnerable people from Ukraine. And that's continued over the last 6 months. We do have a DART on the ground in Poland at the moment, because we feel in connecting with the UN cluster system there that there is the potential for volunteers to support with efforts to support Ukrainian refugees in Poland and potentially other surrounding countries, and then to continue that work, working closely with Ukrainian organizations on the ground to be able to address some of the needs over the border through those partners. So at the moment, what we're working on is a plan to support with transitional shelters through a partner in Ukraine, and then to support with some aid distribution efforts from within Poland. So we are building out the plans for those programs in Poland and Ukraine. So keep an eye on the website. This is hot off the press this week. So we will be making some more announcements shortly on that.
There you go, everyone. You heard it, hot off the press from the CEO. So another good reason to have tuned into this webinar. You get some extra tidbits there. We did have a question in the chat from Mark around partnering with other organisations. Mark, I'm not sure if you joined a little late to the webinar, and just to let anyone know, if you did join later, we have been recording this webinar, so we'll definitely send that along. So I don't know if you might have missed Maria talking about the great work we do with ADRI. We work with Period. We've worked with Natan. We routinely in Nepal, for example, we work with very, very often for several years. We've worked with a great local nonprofit called Relief Nepal. So we do have kind of regular partners on that regard on the ground, but I don't know, Jess, I mean, I don't know, Mark, maybe you're talking more of a corporate partnership, like a sponsorship. Jess, I don't know if we've got routine partners you can touch on who are just kind of consistently supporting our work.
Yeah, I think what you've seen from the previous parts of the presentation is it's definitely something that we build in. We realize our strengths. We bring in a residential volunteer population and we do great work. But in order to try to provide a holistic solution, we're always trying to bring a diverse group of people together, and whether that's from international volunteers, local volunteers, and our staff on the ground, through to donors and partners who might support our work financially. They might support with additional trainings, additional projects. So, you know, as Maria talked about in Nepal, we've recently completed the construction of a health post, but that building would be nothing without the equipment and the doctors and the medical professionals inside. So always connecting with those local partners who are able to fill the buildings that we've built with all the relevant people and equipment, and then also those trainings, which are really important to make sure that the buildings and the infrastructure that we have provided goes on to live a long and happy life and provide those services to people for the longest possible time. So in terms of operational partners, yes, there are lots and lots of those that we would work together with, from in the program development phase. We have connections with Engineers Without Borders, with Arup, a major international engineering group that helps us with the designs, all the way through to those local partners that help in the deployment and stay on the ground for years afterwards, helping to make sure that those resources get used. So yes, we are very collaborative in nature, always looking for partners.
Thanks so much, Jess. I think the phrase, "it really does take a village," springs to mind with our work across the world. I am conscious of time. We're into the last 5 minutes, so I'll keep going with our final topic. But if there are any questions that you do want answered, pop them in the chat. We might not get the chance to answer them live, but I will go through personally and just scoop up and make sure I haven't missed any questions, and I will get back to people individually. So I'm going to cover the last topic here, all around how you can help us continue to make a global impact. I realise I've been chatting already and interjecting and taking questions, and I haven't fully introduced myself. So my name's Siobhan McRae. I'm the Alumni Relations Manager here at All Hands and Hearts. It's my role essentially to ensure that our volunteers feel that their experience with us was mutually beneficial. That's really, really important for us. We don't want people to give up their time away from their work and their families and you know, dedicate really, really hard work to come out, and we don't want to just be like, you know, see you later. So we want to make sure that there's something there. You can stay a part of the kind of extended family, part of the community if you so wish to. And through the alumni network, I'm going to put some links towards that. If you have volunteered or worked with us before, the alumni network is a place where you can connect with more than 8,000 previous volunteers. They're all registered, and essentially it's my job to sort of keep our community of previous volunteers and even staff members, keep you guys all updated. It's myself that sends you guys fortnightly newsletters, organise events just like this webinar, and we just want to highlight the work that we are doing to provide a platform, and we also want to provide a platform to our alumni to share all the incredible things you guys are doing, not only if you come back to programme, but we love hearing about what you've gone on to do. Have you leveraged your volunteer skills and gone off? Some of our volunteers have started their own non-profits and gone on to do just incredible things. So we love seeing that, and we love to highlight it. So I'm just going to touch on, you know, if you're tuning in at home, how you can support our operations as well. So in addition to the links I've been sharing in the chat, I just wanted to just highlight those, and just even, you know, if you haven't served with us before, or if you're looking to rejoin us again on the ground, you could do that on the ground in person or remotely. There's always ways that you can support our operations. So here, a very, very obvious one is to volunteer, is to give your time. Come join us on the ground on programme. We have got crews on the ground in Kentucky, Louisiana, the Bahamas, and the Philippines. At the moment, we've got people on the ground in Mexico, but we are very, very grateful to say that we are fully stocked on volunteers. So we would love to see you guys on our other programmes. And essentially, they're available right now. And if you pop on, I'm going to share links in the chat after this of our volunteer pages. But essentially, what we feel that you can get from a volunteer experience is that real-time sense of the impact that our response and recovery work can have on the communities we serve. So I will post the link, bear with me, just to our volunteer pages. And that's always kept up to date, just with new, sorry, I need to send this to everyone in the meeting. Here it's coming. That's always kept up to date with new applications as they launch and go ahead. But it's not just about volunteering. There's also the opportunity to come join our staff team. I think every single one of us on the call were volunteers before we donned our staff shirts. We find that a lot of the time we get a lot of our staff from our volunteer ranks. So if you're tuning in, you volunteered with us before, and if you've been considering taking a paid position with us, or maybe you're here because you're interested in humanitarianism and you want to work in the sector, it's probably likely that we have a role for you. We're always recruiting for new change members, new change makers. So keep your eye on our careers page, and I will also paste that in the chat. Constantly updating that with new jobs. Just going to reshare this here in the chat. I think I put it in earlier, but that's for you guys there. And like I've said, we also share our jobs on the alumni network. I've put a link in there as well. We've got a fully interactive jobs board on there where we let everyone know about brand new, sorry, I'm getting a bit of an echo there, excuse me, brand new roles available. Another way that you can really help impact is by supporting our work in a financial manner. Essentially, you know, you might have tuned in today and you might have already made a donation to support our work, or maybe you've helped fundraisers on programme, and we are truly eternally grateful for that support. An investment in our work really is an investment in resilient futures for community thrown into crisis by natural disasters. So we're really proud to be able to say that 95 cents of every dollar raised is spent directly on our programmes. So I'm just going to share some links in the chat. It's just there if anybody was thinking about making a donation today, doing something good, you know, paying it forward. Feel free to follow those links. And I guess when you consider, you know, we have a recurring giving campaign, and I do think it stands out, some of these stats there. You know, when you consider that $10 a month buys as much as 480 bricks to aid in a school rebuild, or $30 a month can provide 70 bags of cement to use for foundations of a school, it's really clear that no donation is too small. So I'm going to pop the links in there, and whether that's for you or whether you know someone that likes to give to good, you know, organisations, give to good causes, you can spread that across. And we are running out of time, so I apologise if I'm speaking super fast. I just don't want to keep you guys too long, but I think it's super important for us to talk about advocacy that you guys can do. You guys, essentially, anyone that comes to volunteer for us or work for us, they're going to be the most important advocate for our work that we can have. I fully understand that it's not always a good time to step away from your personal commitments to come out and volunteer. It's not always a great time to switch up your career. And I recognise, especially the pandemic and the widespread cost of living crisis means that you might not have the time. You might have had to trim back on your charitable giving. So if you're sat here today saying, I can't volunteer, I can't come out to work with you, and I just can't spare the extra cash at the moment to donate, a really super easy way you can support our work, and it's really vital, costs you absolutely nothing, is just telling people about us. I thought it was really powerful that in recent months, 30% of our volunteers heard about us through a friend, family member or colleague who volunteered with us previously. And I feel like, you know, looking at this call, there's 50 people on this call right now. If every one of us went and told one person, that's another 50 people that might not have heard about our work before. And that means you can have a huge impact on making, bringing new volunteers in, bringing new donors in, bringing new corporate sponsors in. Maybe you know an organisation based in areas we operate in, maybe they're looking to support. Essentially, I'm just saying, please send them our way or pass on our details. Tell your classmates, tell your teammates, tell your work colleagues. If you're part of religious groups, if you're in a sports team, just tell people about us if you've had a great experience with us. Love to hear from any new people. That has taken us right up, and I've been a bit naughty and I've taken us over the time. And I don't know, I'm just having a quick spin through the chat to see if we got any questions that I can answer very last minute. I think everyone was just giving nice comments. That's really nice. Roger's on there. We'll get back to all of these. Anyone that interacted with me directly, I'll get back to you. Yeah, some people had to leave. Well, thank you so much. Oh, Virginia, that's so kind of you. Thank you for putting on this webinar today. Thank you so much for tuning in, Virginia. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists. I know this was probably quite a lot of information to synthesize, but we do a lot of incredible work, and to fit this into 1 hour was super tough. And you can hear from people like Maria, we can just talk about it. So sorry we took you over, but do reach out to us. I'm actually going to just put my email address in here. Feel free to reach out to me, and I will be in contact with all of you to share the recording of this webinar. And if you have any questions, just hit reply and I'll happily get back to you all. But thank you so much for your time and for letting us steal an extra 4 minutes from you today.
Thank you, Siobhan. Thank you to the team. I hope everybody saw not only the amazing work that we do around the world, but the amazing commitment and dedication of our speakers on the panel today. You really see their love for the work we do for the communities that we serve, and we wouldn't be who we are today without you. So thank you, Carla. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Alex. And thank you to everyone that joined. We hope to see you in the field sometime with us soon. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.